Welcome to this week's episode of the Farmstead Revival. I'm Janelle Anderson along with my sister Trudy, and this week we have a special guest. It is Sean, the Mindful Farmer, Arkansas. You can find him over on Instagram. So Sean, I'm so thankful that you said yes to being here. Do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Sean Pessarra. Finally getting my voice back after 3 weeks of laryngitis and allergies and whatever else is
All the
going
things.
on. So it is still a little not what I normally sound like. I started Mindful Farmer. This is our fourth year now, and we basically provide the essentials that home gardeners, homesteaders, and small scale farmers need to thrive. Uh, we do the essentials that are made in America and last forever. One of my biggest desires is for helping grow backyard gardeners into the next generation of organic farmers. I think that's where that replacement as farmers age out, like that's where that's going to come from. And so a lot of the tools that I design, the high tunnels I design, and that we manufacture are really geared towards that. They're meant to be accessible to men and women, people of all ages, and help get you started in the backyard garden. And then you're like, this is going really well. I'm going to start homesteading. And then this is going really well. I want to do this full time. Maybe my kids want to do this full time. You can use the same tools and just keep scaling out up and increasing efficiencies and then do it for a living. And like that's what we need moving forward is we need more sustainable small scale growers.
I love that so much. So I just want to share how I met Sean because I can't just leave this and have you on here and not talk about it. Is that Sean and I met last April in Asheville, North Carolina, where we both had a conference together. I honestly, not that you should say this to me, I had no idea who you were, but I had no idea who Sean was. But by the time we were done with that conference, like all of us speakers had spent so much time together. It was so amazing. And we were walking back as a group from supper one of the nights. And all of a sudden, Sean is walking towards the hotel and he starts rapping. And I was like, who is this dude? And how come I have not known him before this? Because you are the coolest thing ever. And then at HOA, he comes over after all of the speaking was done. I think it was the first night. And he brings his guitar and he has this harmonica that is like, what is this setup called? Does it have a name?
Yeah, it's just like the little harmonica holder, like Tom Petty style, Bob Dylan.
I
Okay.
love I love that there's no name. Janelle just thought that there's a fancy name. It's just a harmonica
Harmonica
holder.
holder.
Janelle, that's it.
It's the Tom Petty harmonica holder. That
Oh,
I
I love it.
understood. Yeah. And so he like starts playing and singing and doing all of this and I think that you are incredible and I'm so grateful that you came on here. You're not just incredible for those skills that I just mentioned, but for all of the things that you introduced. One of the things that I love is that you are so helpful and you are so focused on helping people learn new skills. And I even myself, like I'm a new gardener. Like this is our third year of gardening. And I just am so grateful that you have so much education on your Instagram, but you also provide the tools and things like that. What made you start doing that? Like, tell
Yeah.
us a bit of your history.
Yeah. So I've always been in love with nature. I feel like that's like, gosh, I mean, I remember being in like elementary school and wanting to be a biologist, kind of like memories. And then as part of my faith journey, it was really connected to that. Like, I just love studying and doing science and being outdoors. And so initially, I got my master's in environmental science. And I really felt like, to be a good steward of creation, like that's the route I want to go. And it wound up being that like that field kind of really like my heart really wasn't in it, not for the learning and the protecting and the observing and the science part, but it was just like I was helping get permits to like fill in wetlands to build more houses or put in oil pads. Yeah, it wasn't what I went into it for. And so as I was wrapping up my undergrad and moving towards masters, I soon got married, like going into my master's degree, and my wife was studying nutrition, and it was like the more she was learning about uh, holistic nutrition, and I was learning more about sustainable agriculture and organic agriculture. It was like our paths were like meeting in the middle of, man, people, like communities would be healthier, the country would be healthier, the world would be healthier. there'd be better education, less crime. Like not many like cure-alls for all the ills of society. Like sustainable agriculture is one of those. That's pretty close. Like it does so much to bring communities together, to make us healthier, and so that just like launched us into that field. And I kind of had to like piece my education together in that. I applied for jobs in sustainable agriculture. There really wasn't anything at the time. It wasn't as popular as it is today. And so I just like started a beekeeping business in Texas. I learned from like a pig farmer and poultry farmer, and just like after I got off work, I just went to work with him, a citrus grower, some gardeners around town, and just kind of basically like put my education together in off work type times. And then got this awesome opportunity in Arkansas 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago now, to work with small scale farmers around the state and help them on like the business side and the production side to increase productivity, increase profitability, and sustainability. And they really like took a chance on me because I just basically have been putting together my education.
You're like the Mr. Potato Head. You're just kind of taking pieces and just shoving them in there.
Raise chickens, raise bees.
There you
raise
go.
gardening. Yeah. And like,
That's the
like,
best analogy I've ever heard.
Sorry, I sat in silence for so long. I just had to say something.
yes, and I already look like a potato, so it was just perfect. It was like put all these things together. So yeah, and so my first like year here was basically just traveling around the state of Arkansas and visiting 30, 40 different farms, seeing them do things 40, 30 different ways, and figuring out what was working well, what wasn't, helping them.
That is so awesome, though, to see all of those different things and be able to take in everybody's different way, because everybody does something different. I mean, you can't meet one person that raises cattle and ask them, and they'll have similar things, but there's always something different that they do.
Absolutely.
And to see all that and like add it all up and figure out which one is working the best, that's so cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, it was huge. I'm so thankful that was the opportunity I got to do that. It was hard. Like there were a lot of challenges. Like I had to help bring farmers together and like help with this cooperative, and so it was kind of a bit of a pressure cooker, but like it wound up forming me into the grower I am today. It was good. And probably one of the best things I got out of that, seeing everyone do it different ways, and also seeing kind of on the personal side too, like some of these farmers were struggling in their family life because the farming life was so hard. And so, it just kind of had me just thinking constantly on this. Okay, if we want farming to be sustainable, it has to also be sustainable for family life and financial.
Yeah.
And so, how do we farm differently? And so after that first year, I got transitioned into a new role where I got to educate people on Heifer Ranch. And so it's a 1,200 acre ranch, regenerative grazing. They're connected with the Savory Institute for holistic grazing. And then I had the horticulture side of things. And so we're certified organic. We did, and basically my job was to make a profitable wholesale organic vegetable farm in rural Arkansas and like make it work. And I were able to get there by the end of like 5 years. We were covering about 5 acres. Oh man, we're probably doing like close to 75 to 100,000 per acre on like
Wow.
in wholesale vegetables.
Hey, just so we're clear, I can't even like really grow a garden. So
And I'm sitting
that's
here.
awesome.
So I'm sitting here going, we have 4,400 square foot garden, and that's a lot for me. Like I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, we had 4 apprentices under me, so they were like kind of in training, and we also had some international volunteers that would come stay for stints at the ranch. But it's just like it was so challenging. Of like the expectation was like, hey, you can't compete with any local farmers. You got to find new markets or new products. You got to hit profitability goals. Go. And
Oh gosh,
and
no pressure.
I live 45 minutes away, and I can't keep my apprentices working more than 40 hours a week. There's no overtime, and then like I can only work till 5 o'clock, and I can't work weekends. how do you make a farm be profitable and functional just 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 on a Monday through Friday? So we had to get creative. We used like timers and remote cameras and stuff like that to keep everything going. And we got, pretty close to, I feel like having an example where we could like that was the goal ultimately, is to be like, here, like just copy this and like you can replicate this across the country. And that was like when COVID was happening towards the end of that time. And I was really feeling pretty isolated because I didn't live on ranch like a lot of the other people. And so I was like commuting in, so I had to keep extra distance from everybody. I just felt like we were kind of going through some changes as an organization. And what I really found was like, excuse me.
You take a break whenever you need to. It's true.
Yeah. So
is it cool if I start, can I call you Froggy? Like when your voice starts getting clogged up?
Yes.
No, I won't.
If I start croaking.
Yeah, don't croak. Please don't croak.
So, towards the end, so not only was there the production we needed to do, there's also like research on trying to figure out what were techniques that other farmers could be implementing. That was when it really like kicked off like my desire to like design new tools that work for small scale growers. I designed like new cultivators.
I saw some of your tools and they were really cool.
Thank you.
Like, I didn't show my husband yet, but I know he'll want one. So
yeah,
that's why I haven't shown him yet.
Okay, let me tell you.
He decided he's taking over the garden because I can take care of animals, but gardening is, I can grow some stuff, but it's not very.
I don't mean to like get off track, but you need the cultivator with the long handle, you need the cultivator with the short handle, and you need the broad fork.
That I've seen that broad fork before, and I thought that was really, really cool. Yeah. So definitely.
The goal is to make it as simple as possible. And so like when I was at Heifer and scalable, right? Like you could have those things in the home garden, and like on that 5 acres, we had 3 acres that we did by tractor for things like pumpkins or like winter squash, cabbages, onions, potatoes. But then the other 2 acres we did by hand, just with like broad forks and stuff. And so it's definitely very possible to like hit $500,000 on like just a 2 or 3 acres doing everything by hand. Like that's very much in the realm of possibility for folks.
That's so crazy.
So I think it's like seeing that was kind of like the potential and what could lead us to a better localized food system. I was still seeing and like I was still doing trainings at the farm with farmers. I was still seeing that like a lot of farms were struggling with infrastructure needs. So cash flow is a big issue, and capital is a big issue. So we kind of started going the route of like, okay, how do we figure out how to like design a walk-in cooler cheaper, where like farmers could store root crops all winter and have cash flow all winter. So like I designed a shipping container from like an old reefer unit that was like
all I could think of is our dad's.
Yeah,
the one that he made with an air conditioner.
Yeah, that's what we did.
So
yeah, so that was it. Go ahead, Janelle.
No, I was just gonna say my dad would be very like, he was very smart at adapting and making things as needed, but like you're like 10 steps above that.
Yeah, it uses a device called a CoolBot that tricks an air conditioner to running as a refrigerator. Yeah. And so that way, if it ever breaks, you don't have to get a repairman out to rural wherever. You can just go to the next big box store and buy a replacement AC unit. And we never had to go out. I mean, they lasted for years, even running that constantly. And so it allowed us to be able to store like something like probably in the realm of like 30,000 pounds of vegetables through the winter in this like,
oh my gosh,
shipping container.
I just want you to know that my mind is going like this because we are putting in a walk-in cooler for processing meat and things like that, but like root crops, like I didn't even think that I could put them in there also. Like that's so smart.
Yeah, that's what transformed us, like for the farm, and being able to go to now start going to like grocery stores and schools was because we offered like 5 products every single week of the year. Like restaurants and grocery stores, they struggle to work with farmers because like, hey,
supply.
Yeah, I've got this thing for the next 3 weeks, and then I'm out, and then I'll show up 2 months from now, and I've got carrots for 4 weeks, and then I'm out. But if you're like, hey, we have carrots, beets, daikon radish, cabbage, and what was the other one? Kohlrabi. And we have them every single week of the year. Would you like to purchase from us? They're going to be like, yes. And
Yeah,
so
heck yeah. Because they can build a menu around that.
you can build a menu around that. And then whenever you come in, and we had lettuce too, almost every week of the year, and baby greens, then you can say, hey, now we're in our seasonal strawberry production. And you just throw the strawberries on the truck, but the truck's already going there. So that was super helpful. And the cooler made the difference. The other thing that made the difference was like high tunnels, is being able to, plant lettuce almost every single week of the year and harvest every week of the year. Like that's what helped us, because I said like, we're limited on our hours and how much time we could spend during the week. So it was like our summers weren't crazy because we didn't need to plant the whole farm in the summer. We could just focus in the high tunnels and have some of the outside and cover crop, because in the fall we'd do a big planting and put that in the cooler. In the winter we'd be back in the high tunnels. We were able to keep everyone at 40 hours a week every week of the year. So there wasn't like a high time and a low time. We just kept going. So what I saw was like the farmers in Arkansas specifically, there was a lack of cooler space. There's a lack of tunnel space. And any input we were buying in was coming from out of state. So getting soil in from, first it's brought in from Canada, and then someone, processes it, and then you import it from Vermont or California or Florida to Arkansas. So you're paying on shipping twice basically. And then any sort of like fertilizer was coming in from out of state. Our silage tarps, things like that we used to cover the ground, those were all shipped in. And now, so that was one of the things as I was thinking about kind of what was next for me. I was like, I want to be able to help our regional farmers get those things cheaper and like design those things better. So like I do have a design for a modular walk-in cooler that's cheaper than what's like currently out there. And it's like that's kind of one of the next iterations or one of the next projects. I can't get to that now, but like I've got a notebook full of all the things I think that would really make.
Will you get to it before the end of the year?
Not,
No.
but it's like those kind of things can make such a difference. Like if a farmer could all of a sudden save $2,000 off of shipping charges that year, then they could put that towards the depreciation of like a high tunnel, and then have that would be paid off in the next 5 years, and then that brings in $20,000 more of income every year. And so it's like that's the kind of things that were really getting me excited about that. And so that was one of the reasons why I left Mindful Farm, was to start the high tunnel business specifically. There was maybe one person in Arkansas that was installing them. There was no one in Arkansas manufacturing them, so all those were being shipped in from out of state. And so we did just that the first year, and then worked on the fertilizer, potting soil, and the tools the second year. Added a couple more tools this past year, and then we're still working on like scaling up those operations. So the goal, like I said, is kind of this like funnel of like home gardener to homesteader to farmer. So we want to meet the needs of our regional farmers, but also kind of have this clear path that people could follow, like using the broad fork, learning how to use that in your backyard garden. If you or your kids wanted to be a market gardener, you're already equipped for that task or that new opportunity. And so that was also a big part of like the design. So, like through the teaching we do on social media, like there's opportunities to do like consulting, like with me, like if you're wanting to plan out a farm, but also if you're just like wanting to learn the basics, like everyone's got to start somewhere. So we kind of try and hit at every point along the way.
Yeah, and so just to interrupt with that, don't you have something that you're launching like in the next week or two, one of your courses?
Yeah.
And what does that focus on? I had looked at it briefly, but I didn't like get all the details. You want to just talk about that a little bit? Because you might want to send Eric to it, or maybe you want to attend.
Yeah,
and
so
it's really inexpensive. Like, was it like $25 or something?
$20.
I was gonna laugh if he was like, "No, it's 120." Janelle.
That's $1 for our premiere, whatever. That's another big thing I really want to be about is like accessibility. So if you go to the movie theater, you could spend $20 and sit there for 3 hours. Why watch some movie star when you can listen to me talk about gardening for 3 hours?
Heck yeah, I'm in.
Maybe.
It's like it breaks, right? So the first time I did this last year, and like our current people that bought it last year, they have access to that original video, but it's like a 3-hour video of me presenting these modules, but I didn't put it into modules. So now I've broken it up into actual smaller modules. So it's a lot of the same content, but I've expanded upon it. Try to clear it up now that I've kind of gone at it for a second time, and then broke it into smaller modules. And it all lives on the website, so it's easy to get to once you're logged in, and then like you could be in the car and just like listen to each segment.
So who would be the person that would find the most value in that?
Yeah, I'd probably say anyone who's been gardening for less than 5 years.
Oh, so me.
Yeah, I mean, depending on, I would say like, I think there's something that anyone could get out of it, because so much of what I like try and am trying to help backyard gardeners do is to grow more like market gardeners. So even if you've been gardening for 10 years, there will be things, I think, that unless you've been market gardening for a few years, that'll be new to you. And so all of it takes an organic approach. We're real big focus on soil health.
Hey, yeah. I have a question while you were on soil health. I was going to ask you this a long time ago and I forgot.
Hello, squirrel. This is us.
This is
go ahead.
Yep, have you ever heard of using so when they take the trees out here in North Carolina, they leave them windrowed, what's left over windrowed, and over years it starts to break down, and so it turns into soil, obviously, and it starts to I don't know how to explain. I mean, obviously, you know what happens when a tree breaks down and turns into a soil and stuff. And so we actually have a lot of the windrows on our property here because they would go through and they would take the trees down and then they would plant new trees. And so these dirt piles have been sitting for like, I don't even know how many, like 25 plus years, like just sitting and that's actually what we had used for our garden, and we sold some dirt. And so I think one of the guys that had gotten the dirt, he was really serious about, we just put the dirt out and planted stuff, and we're like, yeah, we're good. But this guy like did soil samples, and I think he said the thing that it was lacking was nitrogen, I think is what it was. He said, but otherwise it was like perfect.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of anybody using?
Yep. And I literally knew you were going to say nitrogen. Was your
yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Excuse me. Plant's attacking me. Like trees, leaves, anything that's really high in carbon. When you pile it up like that, it's breaking down anaerobically. So it's not like a compost pile. It's not being turned. So it's not mostly bacteria. It's mostly fungi that are breaking down the cellulose in the trees and stuff, and the lignin and whatnot. They use nitrogen because they're mostly protein to do that. So just like, if you're familiar with like the back to Eden method, where you cover your garden in wood chips and plant into the wood chips and stuff, the organic matter from the chipped wood is a really good source of carbon. But if you try to like mix the wood chips into your soil, then all of a sudden the fungi proliferate, eat the wood chips, and suck all the nitrogen out of the soil from the plants. And so it's high in carbon, but it's not high in nitrogen. Most of our nitrogen either has to be fixed by a legume, so like alfalfa or beans or things like that. And they're fixed by the bacteria that live in the roots of those plants, or from like animal sources. So I use poultry feathers. So feather meal, so it's ground up chicken feathers. And it's a high nitrogen fertilizer, but it's slow release. So it's not going to burn your plants the way that like urea or like, or even poultry litter would.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it's also low in phosphorus. So a lot of people will try and like, oh, I've got all this, chipped wood or like the windrow, like all this broken down, decomposed chipped wood. But it's still, but I still need some fertilizer. So I'll keep adding like the manure from my chickens or the manure from my cattle.
That's actually what my husband started doing, is he started mixing in the animals' droppings and all of the things inside of it.
And it's good. It's good to a point until the phosphorus starts to build up. So like chicken litter, cattle, those can be high in phosphorus too. and the plants use
Horse poop? What about
Yes.
horse poop? She's got lots of horses. Okay.
Yep.
I have one less horse. We got rid of a mini horse today. That was like a half a horse.
Little,
It's fine.
little mini poops.
Doesn't matter.
And so, like, those things are good, but they're not a perfect balance to the soil. So I usually try and treat like wood chips or even like finished compost as more of like a soil conditioner or soil amendment. It's like putting carbon in the soil. It's making it light and fluffy. It's improving the structure of the soil, but it's not really feeding the soil.
Have you ever used like rabbit droppings and stuff like that?
I haven't, just because
I know a lot of people have do in their gardens, and I just was curious because like people sell bags of it.
Yeah, and I think those are higher in nitrogen compared to like poultry. I think poultry can still be like higher in phosphorus than nitrogen, whereas rabbits, I think, because they're mostly eating things like alfalfa, which is already high in nitrogen, can have a higher nitrogen level. So I mean, there's really nothing better than just like doing the soil test at the beginning of the season. So I just did mine, and I'm going to amend according to those recommendations. Soil tests are normally free in most states, and then I pay a little bit extra for a nitrate test and organic matter, so I can track and see my organic matter improve over time. And then
So just in case like someone was listening right now, I know that we can get our soil samples at the 4-H office, or not 4-H office,
The extension.
The extension office, yeah, the 4-H office.
It's fine.
The extension office. But is that where you would get, or where do you get your soil sample kit?
Same
place? Okay, so that would be, if someone was listening and they wanted to check out their soil, that would be a good start, right?
Yep, and like ours even does like plant samples, so you can, if you have diseases, you can send in leaves and stuff, and they can also do a nutrient analysis from the leaves too. So if your tomatoes are just starting to put on flowers, you could like send in a leaf sample, and they'll tell you like, hey, you're still low on nitrogen, or you need way more calcium, and you could do like either like a liquid drench or a foliar application to the plants and like fix it before it's a problem, which is pretty cool. And that's what like the guys that are really trying to like get as much out of their plants as they possibly can, like that's what they're doing. Is they're doing like soil tests multiple times a year. They're doing leaf tests or petiole tests like multiple times to keep that nutrition like as close to ideal or optimal as you possibly can.
That's really intense.
Yeah, I can't imagine going to like testing like that
for home.
But I can. Yeah,
I barely remember to mail out bills. Like, there's no way that I would be able to just be like, oh, take this and this, and I got to mail that in.
But just like making it a rhythm to like every February or every March, I do my soil tests, and then just pay for the nitrate test, and then amend according to the recommendations. And that's really why I focused. Like our first fertilizer we launched was just the feather meal, because like 9 times out of 10, it's nitrogen that's the most lacking, because either people are using compost, which isn't high in nitrogen. Or they're using animal manures year after year, and that builds up phosphorus, and you need the nitrogen to rebalance that out. So, like, I would say 9 times out of 10, like a feather meal or a nitrogen source is going to rebalance your soils and help your plants really take off.
So talking about feather meal, because you're not asking us to do this, but I'm just going to tell you that if you want to order Sean's feather meal, you can go to his website, which is, do you want to tell him what your website is? But you can get it on Amazon, which is really, really nice to be able to do that too. What's your website? We'll throw it out at the end again, but just so people know.
Yeah, it's mindfulfarmerarkansas.com.
I should know because
either one.
I just got my cultivator tools from there.
That's really funny because isn't that your Instagram?
Yeah. I just didn't want to be like, it's this, and then he'd be like, actually, it's not, and then you have to correct it.
I did just buy a new domain. Like, we're trying to shorten it, because now, like, you know, we ship tunnels all over Arkansas, or all over the country. So it's mindfulfarmer.co, also takes you to the same.
Oh, look at you, stepping up. Okay, so you just mentioned high tunnels now. Can you tell people, we could go into why high tunnels can be really productive, not only for farms, but also for homesteaders. But then can you also tell them what you offer? Because you absolutely do not just say, hey, you should do this, but you like have some resources and actual products that can help people.
Yeah. High tunnels can be so important for people trying to get the most out of a small area, which is why they're like incentivized. If trying to figure out what order my thoughts for a second. So like most people think of like a greenhouse, right? And maybe it's even like the greenhouse you see at Costco or whatever, Harbor Freight to like get started, right?
Or my $267 Lowe's greenhouse.
Yeah, or like I saw one on TikTok and they're like, this one's $40 and they ship it to you from China. I'm like, how? How is that cost effective? I don't know.
It came from China.
Yeah,
Let's just be honest.
Hey,
It came
you can't
from
get any
China.
better. You can't get any better than Dad's. It was free because Eric made the
brackets or
oh my gosh,
the bracing.
yes, my husband made them for him because he asked him to make them, and then I don't even know where. I think he ordered the plastic, so I guess it wasn't free. He had to pay for the plastic.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't come from China, so let's just.
So the greenhouse is like great for starting plants, and and then a high tunnel is passively heated. So a greenhouse, you have like a lamp, a heater, some sort of way to like keep and maintain a temperature, and that's for starting plants. For a high tunnel, it's typically passive, so it's just using the sun to heat it up during the day, and at night it almost gets the same temperature as what's outside. It'll be a bit warmer, but the big thing is like in the wintertime, it's going to keep the snow, the ice, and the wind off the plants. So even if it still gets to single digits inside the tunnel, most of those plants are still going to be fine, like the kale, the lettuce, the spinach, because it doesn't have the snow and the ice and the wind blowing it, crushing it, and all that stuff. That's usually what does plants in. It's not just the temperature. So what's great about the tunnels is we're in Zone 7, Central Arkansas. So we get 100 plus degrees in the summertime, single digits in the wintertime, a big span. But we can grow in those tunnels every single week of the year. So in the wintertime, it keeps it warm enough during the day. Even if it's a single digit day, inside the tunnel, it's probably in the 40s. And like the lettuce can keep growing. The spinach can keep sizing up. If we have root crops in there, we could like do a big planting of root crops and then harvest them in January and February when no one else has fresh carrots by the bunch. So it opens up so many doors to be able to like keep product flowing every week of the year. Mm-hmm. The big thing too for us in the large high tunnels is what it allowed us to do for like our tomatoes and peppers. The yield that we were getting out of like a large tunnel, so like a 30 by 96, so about 3,000 square feet. We'll plant 300 tomato plants in there, indeterminate heirloom varieties. We'll train them to 2 vines, so that's 600 tomato vines in that one tunnel. And then each vine is producing...
Flawed.
Yeah. Close to like, usually about 20 pounds on each vine, so about 40 pounds per plant. So that gives us 12,000 pounds per tunnel. And then we can wholesale them at $2 a pound, so it's $24,000 worth of heirloom tomatoes just from the month of May to the middle of August. And then we pull them out and plant lettuce.
I'm not gonna lie, but your knowledge of what you have going on and how much like numbers and whatever else like is amazing.
Yeah, well, that was
because I would be like, my husband goes, "How much was that?" And I'm like, it's like maybe $5. I don't know, somewhere in there.
Well, I mean, because that was part of my job at Heifer was to like build.
So you're doing it because it was your job.
The economic case to why build a tunnel, why plant heirloom tomatoes, why switch from growing them outside with the Florida weave or whatever. And we actually wound up doing like a combination. We'd do heirlooms towards the midsummer, and then whenever the heirlooms are coming off, we'd have field tomatoes that were determinate varieties that would carry us through the fall. And so we wound up having tomatoes for 6 months out of the year. And so that was huge. To have,
yeah, that's crazy.
Here's the 5 crops we have every week of the year, and then here's tomatoes we have for 6 months out of the year. So it really makes people want to use your farm because you're reliable and stuff. So tunnels were a huge part of that. Cucumbers, we were harvesting cucumbers 3 weeks after planting in a high tunnel. And I mean, those are even more productive than the tomatoes are. To where we had to like keep reducing how many beds we were starting because they were just too productive. Like we couldn't keep up. And so the tunnels, like we basically got this rhythm of like, we'd do these big plantings outside in spring. And then most of our summertime was focused inside the tunnels. There's shade cloth on the tunnel, so it cuts out half the UV radiation. So you're not just, it is warm, but you're not like cooking under the sun. So it actually feels a little bit better to be inside the tunnel, even if it's July, with the shade cloth on it. And then the fall we'd be out in the garden, and then the winter we'd be back in the tunnels. And that was kind of our rhythm. So I found that tunnels were so important for growers, and there just wasn't enough information on how to best utilize them. And there's also a program through the Natural Resource Conservation Service to help you cost share the price of a tunnel. So you can enter into a contract with them. It's part of a conservation agreement. So you can also do things like cross fencing, waters for cattle to keep them out of streams so there's not stream erosion, pollinator gardens. You can get basically compensated compensated for the cost that you're implementing to convert 5 acres to native pollinator or native.
Me and Eric actually took advantage of the cross fencing. Is what we took advantage of when we had started our place. We had gone in and we had a whole NRCS like thing, and we did it. We actually, instead of hiring someone, we built it all ourselves, which was not a whole lot of fun. I wish that we had hired someone, but
our local NRCS office back in North Dakota they were very helpful.
The bomb.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Lloyd. I love Lloyd.
So Ben and I first, when we got married, we had a small place that had like 5 acres. And my dad, he was like, you have to go get this EQIP grant. We need a greenhouse. And I'm like, I don't want to grow anything, Dad. We don't need one. And anyway, since we own the property, guess who got a greenhouse or a high tunnel, I should say. So yeah, we participated in that program.
Yeah, and
not willingly.
Yeah, that my dad forced me into that one. Just he wanted a high tunnel. Sorry, we're getting off track here.
and that's it's been really cool how that program has made it accessible for folks that are maybe already at some level of production, like even if they do livestock, but they're looking to have something else at the market, because if you're at a farmer's market with beef, it's hard to, I would say, I haven't done this before, but I would say it's hard to get people to your booth because things are in a freezer, right? But then if you also have flowers and vegetables, and then all your signs are about beef, now you become like a one-stop shop, and you're going to get more people at your booth than the other guy that has everything in the freezer. And so I think they see the value in that. They see the value in conservation, and then also for a high tunnel, like I already mentioned, like just how productive they can be for most people, myself included. I don't own a farm. I don't have any family with farmland. I can't go out and buy a lot of acreage, but if I have half acre, even if it's a half acre in the city, I could put up 2 or 3 high tunnels and start doing more than $100,000 in fresh vegetables in such a small little area. So the tunnels provide like such a gateway for the next generation of farmers, because you could just start out with 1 or 2 tunnels and be able to be at the market every week.
I think that being able to do that, I think, is really important, because how many of us, we preach buy local, but
if you can't get it local, then what do you do?
And so I do agree with you. I think that this is the next step. People have to be able to purchase regionally these different things, and high tunnels absolutely make sense for that to happen.
Yep.
And so you not only consult with people who are wanting to start doing that, I mean, all of that experience you gained working, but you also sell the high tunnels, correct? And you install them.
Yep. So they're all my design. We bend the pipe. We do everything, and so they start off as small as like 200 square feet, which is like perfect for like a backyard gardener. You could use it as your greenhouse to like actually start all your plants, or you could use it as an actual like high tunnel, and like put your tomatoes down the middle of it, peppers on one side, something else on the other side. I used them in my own backyard. The little 200 square feet ones, to do a lot of cut flowers. So we had tulips by Valentine's Day. We had flowers in March and April before other farmers did, and we're just in this tiny little tunnel. They They go up to our next size is it's like 14 feet wide and then 20 feet wide, and that's probably our most popular size. 20 by 36 is really popular for like people that are thinking about they want to grow more for their family, or even for like if they live close to like their relatives. Like, hey, we're all going to chip in on this, but we're also thinking about maybe taking extra to the farmers market. That's a good size. That still produces so much food. And then our biggest size that we just came out with is our 30 by 96, which is what I mentioned earlier. So that's that's almost 3,000 square feet of growing space, and that's like you actually need like employees at that point. You're really planting it consistently and like one crop after the other. And then we ship all of them too. So I do installs here in Arkansas, but we have written instructions, video instructions, and then you can always call me. And now we're able to ship tunnels all over the country. So California, Idaho, Wisconsin, we're sending one. We're sending 2 to Virginia in a couple weeks. And it's just, I think, really helping open the door for more and more new growers.
And then after my husband listens to this podcast, you're going to have to send one to North Carolina because he's going to want one. Yep. I guarantee that's going to happen. He's going to listen to the podcast and be like, we should get it. Agreed. Yeah. We should get a wind tunnel.
Yeah. And even if... So we have ran into some issues like with all the funding freezes that have happened. They even shut down like my local NRCS office that's a few miles away. They just shut that one down. So it has made some people a little hesitant about the future of the program. Most of the customers I'm working with have been like assured that like their funds have already been approved and allocated, so they're good. But even if you don't get like a cost share for the tunnel, and for some people, it may pay for all the tunnel, depending on what region of the country you're in. Some people only pay a portion of it. But even if you're paying for the whole thing out of pocket, at that rate, like the 3,000 square foot one I was talking about, 30 by 96, like that grew $24,000 worth of tomatoes wholesale in just a few months, and the whole tunnel cost less than $16,000. So it's like it pays for itself in one crop in one season. And then you'll have it for the next 50 years. So it's like, if you just have a way to save up and budget for it, or to, capitalize it into your farm, then like it's a no-brainer. And that's my plan. Yeah. Like, the second we do get our own farm, is we're just putting up tunnels like crazy, and we're just going to focus on like 1 acre of tunnel production, and then start cover cropping and doing more acreage after that is the plan. So yeah. It's just
that's so awesome.
Focus in that one space.
So we are still going to order one from you, but like you said, like save up and get it. Like I'm not going to get the 30 by 96 though.
Why not? You have enough children that you can just put them to work.
They won't probably want to live here forever if I do that. I'm trying to make them stay here. I shouldn't say.
Oh my gosh, you're like Eric. You're like Eric. He's like, they can live with us forever. I'm like, no, they can leave when they turn 18. It's okay. No, but I'm also the one that homeschooled them.
That's so funny. But so again, they can go to your website. They can contact you there. They can check all that kind of stuff out and do it. I just have one question before we move on to the next topic. When I purchase mine, you're still going to come install it, right?
For friends, there's exceptions. But for most people,
because we're in Tennessee, you'd have to drive. Okay, so I have something that I want to talk about. We had kind of chatted a little bit back and forth about some topics, and I think I know that we probably need to wrap up in the next few minutes, but I want to talk about raised beds because they are like all of the craze and all of the things. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Like, I know that you're never going to make people feel like they made a bad decision. Why would you like to see people maybe not use raised beds, and where does it make sense, if it does make sense somewhere?
Yeah. So I've had several like posts that I've done about, hey, you don't need to buy raised beds. Like that's a waste of money. And like people were like, you hate old people. You hate people with disabilities. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I really struck a nerve with some people about the whole raised bed thing. And
so I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah.
I like it.
What I do like is kind of a pet peeve of mine is there is like, especially for new gardeners, there's so many people that are like, just go out, buy the metal raised bed kit or buy the vertical tower, whatever, buy the bags of soil, go buy the plant starts and hope for the best. And if you run into anything, just like throw compost on it. I don't know. And there is like a level of knowledge that does have to happen, and that is part of like the beautiful aspect of like having is deepening your knowledge of creation and the world around us. That even like I said, I started off in beekeeping. That was like my first business. And I had people like, hey, I want to get started in beekeeping. And I'm like, do not buy a hive the first year. Like, go work with another beekeeper, learn, or you're just going to kill them. And I'm sure y'all feel that with cattle and bison too. Like someone's like, oh yeah, I've never farmed before, never had an animal before. I'm just gonna go out and buy a herd of bison, and you're just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I'm always like, ask me, I will tell you things. Like, don't go do what you shouldn't do.
Read every book, apprentice under someone, maybe for a whole year, so that whenever you do it well, and you take care of that animal too. Like, just jump into beekeeping and then you kill them right away. It's like, that helped nobody, and definitely didn't help the bees. So I feel the same way about gardening. Is like, I want to encourage people to jump into it and get started, and you don't have to know everything before you get started. But the track that like most commercial companies push people down is really product heavy. And so if you buy the metal raised bed and you buy the soil and you buy the transplants and you buy the custom garden sleeves and the whatever stuff, and go through the catalog, that's how you get the $50 tomato, right? You spent all this money to get started, and and it just becomes so expensive. Or maybe you try and go the other route and like try and bootstrap a lot of stuff without the education behind it, and then it just doesn't go well. And so it still comes about to being the same thing. Like, for the effort you put into it, maybe not the money you put into it, the effort you put into it, you didn't get the return you needed.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I feel like I have a pet peeve about raised beds, especially the raised beds kits, is because they tend to incentivize people to buy soil as opposed to working with the soil that they have. And so some of those exceptions are if your soil is contaminated, or two, if you don't have any topsoil, like maybe you're on top of a mountain, you've got to bring in soil. I get that. Or some raised beds can be more ergonomic, although some of the raised beds like I've worked with people, you stop at the knees and then you still wind up bending over them. And it's like, if you just had a long handled tool, we could work upright and keep your back straight. And so
I'm 5'11". If I needed a raised bed that was comfortable, it'd have to be at least like what?
Yeah, it'd be like waist high.
Tall.
Right? Wait, you're 5'11"?
Yeah.
We're both the same height.
How did you not know that?
I'm 5'11" too. That's so crazy. Yeah, I'm definitely 5'11".
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, my wife definitely doesn't hide the chocolate up on the top shelf.
My goodness.
She's noticeably taller than me, and she tells people like, I'm 5'9", and I'm like, I'm 5'9" too.
I
I'm like an
love
inch
that so much.
Oh
my goodness. So it's not that you're against raised beds. It's you would like to see people work with what they have, if possible, and because we know that if you are going to take what is there and learn about it and figure out how to make it better, like, you are going to eventually be ahead of the game. But we're an instant gratification society, and we want stuff and we want it instantly. But I do understand, like, going back to the point of like, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. Case in point, I was doing some videos today for like an online conference just about like making a few different products with milk. And I was like, I just want to show you bare bones that you do not need to go buy anything special. And then I was like, except you need a $20 thermometer that tells you when you need to go check something. But I'm like, you don't need everything. Take what you have and utilize that.
Yeah, exactly. And even sourdough is the same way. I do sourdough bread, and I use like the enamel roasting pans. They're like $13, right? And then you see these like $200 cast iron contraptions for perfect steaming. I'm like, you just throw it in an enamel pan, $13. Like, I never want to sell people stuff they don't need, but like with the aspect of being like frugal around the gardening, if you buy all those things, it's so expensive. You probably don't have a good result. And then maybe people do want the ergonomic, whether it's age or disability or what have you, condition. And so maybe they buy a really tall raised bed. Well, then that's super expensive to fill that with soil. Also, raised beds, because they're so tall, require you to irrigate them more because the water just goes down and out, right? Mm-hmm. Those plants aren't tapped into the reservoir soil, groundwater. And or a lot of times they are even. Like I did kind of like an autopsy of a raised bed one time, and we kind of like, there was a tomato plant, and we kept digging down, and the roots were barely in the raised bed. They just kind of jumped the raised bed and got into the mineral soil underneath. So the whole point of the raised bed was completely pointless.
Yeah.
And some people will like trying to fill them with sticks and leaves and organic matter, and like that's just not what plants need to thrive in that season. And then they wonder why the plants struggle. But if you
Isn't that just going back to the same thing about like if you're using the plants and the leaf or the trees and the leaves and all these sticks and stuff, like nitrogen, like that's going to become a huge issue, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's case in point.
And there's like, I forget what it's called. It's like the graph of success, where it's like naive optimism, and then like struggles, and then like valley of despair, and then like educated optimism. And like all farmers go through that, where it's like, oh, we had a great season, and then all of a sudden the pest and disease hit, or the fertility issues hit, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And you hit this despair, and you got to choose at that point to like, do I scrap it and give up, or do I keep pushing and then educate myself out of this valley? And so I think that's what will happen with a lot of people that buy the soil, and it looks great on Instagram, and it's so cute, and all these plants are thriving maybe year one, and then year two, that fertility's gone. All the nitrogen is being robbed from the soil by all the leaves you put down in there. And then year two, you're like, what the heck? I'm struggling. How's year two worse than year one? And so the method I'm really trying to promote, if people have access to some degree of topsoil, is if you work it with a broad fork, or if you don't want to buy a broad fork, you want to save money, you can use like what's the smaller fork? Not a hay fork, but garden fork.
Like a pitch. Oh.
Just a short little garden fork. You can just kind of loosen it and stuff. Put a silage tarp on it, and kill the grass, and then start building your beds, mulch your rows with wood chips, get a soil test, amend according to the soil test, and like you're good to go. So it's like, if you went that route and you did buy a broad fork, you did buy all the mineral amendments and the fertilizer you'd need to cover 2,000 square feet, you're still going to be less than buying like 2 raised beds. But that broad fork is going to, like, you could take that broad fork and do a whole acre, or you could take that broad fork and do 20 beds every year for the next 25, 30 years. So it's like that's the kind of thing I really want to help people not get caught up in the early trappings of spending too much, then hitting the valley of despair, and then just being out of gardening. And so
you want people to stay in it for the long haul.
To stay in it, and to like find the joy in educating and observing. And that's also, I think you'd mentioned, Janelle, like we're an instant gratification culture, and we're an automation culture too. We like I've heard several people talk about like how they can automate grazing, and how they can automate poultry, and like have the coops that move by robots across the pasture. But like any good livestock person knows, like you've got to put eyeballs on your animals and observe them, and like you're learning about them, you're learning about their individual personalities, or the animal group as a whole. You're catching disease far before any sort of like robot can detect it or whatever. And so it's just important. And in horticulture, they say that like a farmer's footsteps are the best fertilizer. That it's like just time in the field observing is so important. And so
that's it. That's the same thing that we apply to livestock.
Yeah. You just got to spend time with it. And so there is the instant, like, and that's why like those hydroponic towers have gotten so, popular, because it's like, want to garden but don't care about gardening? Try this instant hydroponic thing. don't care to learn about the plants and the soil, but $800 at Costco, whatever.
That sounds like my kind of gardening.
You would say that.
Say no.
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
So yeah, so I was going to like get people excited about just like learning and like deepening knowledge. It just makes you better as a human to like sit back and watch the animals and the plants and see how.
I agree. I think from a faith perspective, one of the coolest things that now that we are in our third year of gardening and is that you can understand so much more biblically of what God was saying in the Bible when you have actually like watched plants grow and you've planted them and you've cultivated them and you've harvested them. Like it opens up like so much of understanding creation and why he created it for us. And it is to be a part of it and to have our hands on it or to be watching it. So I agree. Like I feel like we're missing that. And it's probably one of the ills of society is that we've been so far away from that.
Yeah.
And it has made us not understand and not feel fulfilled. Cause like it's the hardest parts of my life sometimes is animals and husbandry but also the gardening. Yeah, Trudy knows. Well, let's not tell your story from this morning. Maybe when we stop recording, we'll let Sean know what happened to you. But it is one of the best parts. Like there is such immense joy that I get from growing stuff and from being around our animals. So Sean, as we wrap this up, if you could just give one piece of advice to someone who's maybe like starting out, and I think that you probably already said it, and I think I know what you'll say, but like, what would you tell them that this first year, what's their biggest piece of advice you can give a new gardener?
Soil test would be like,
yeah, I knew you.
you just gotta have it. Like you gotta know it's there. It's just like having a bank account and never checking your balance. You just like you're just gonna hit over.
You just really hope.
Right?
You just hope that there's money in there.
I really hope it's there. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And then also fall in love with learning, right? Fall in love with learning about the animals or about the plants and the insects around them and stuff. If you do that, then you're going to spend more time with it and you're going to have better success. And for people that can connect it to your faith like as well, I think that's really important. I think it's Francis Bacon said that like God wrote two books, the Bible and creation, and like both teach us about his character. And so you can learn a lot in the sciences. Faith doesn't have to be against science. Science can really deepen faith. And which is also really important for our kids too. Like it's such a learning opportunity. I had the boys help me inoculate a wood chip pile with wine cap mushrooms today. So we're talking about mycelium and stuff like that. Like it's a whole opportunity to like move your body and engage your family and engage your faith. And like it's so much more than just trying to get food back into the house or things like that. You can really get so much more value out of it than just what you're picking.
Yep. I agree. I love it. Okay, Sean, so tell everybody again where they can find you. Give them like your social media as well as your website again. And if you want to pop your email out there, if you're bold enough, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. So mindfulfarmerarkansas.com is our website. It's also our Instagram handle. And then I think Mindful Farmer is our TikTok handle and YouTube handle and Facebook handle, I think. But if you just Google Mindful Farmer, you'll find us.
Yeah.
And so, you can reach us on email at info@mindfulfarmerarkansas.com. And then people can always message me. Like I try and be pretty good about getting back to everybody with questions and stuff like that. I want to connect and like help people grow better. And so I want to make that easier for folks.
Yep. So one other piece, conferences. You speak at conferences, you do all that kind of stuff. So where is your first one kicking off? Like where can they see you?
Yeah. The first one coming up. So I'll actually have like an in-person event here in Central Arkansas at Bella Urban Farm on April 13th. Like 8 other farmers are doing a big plant sale. and then I'll be there with like our tools and our fertilizer and soil and stuff. So that'll be cool. So if you're in Arkansas, you can like stock up on all your plants, and we could hang out and talk gardening. And then next conference I think is the um, homesteading festival in June.
Yeah. Okay. So in Columbia, Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So
When you can come and set up your high tunnel.
there you go.
Oh gosh.
I'll just add it on top of the pile with stuff.
Ben will kill me if I'm like, oh, by the way, I reserved a high tunnel. Oh gosh.
And then,
No, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there. So you're bringing the whole family, right?
yeah.
Cool. Well, Sean, I thank you for joining us, getting over laryngitis, and like, I can't believe that you came on here, because all I could think when you started, I was like, oh gosh, what if he loses his voice and then he's going to blame us for the rest of his life that, that it went away again after all of that struggle.
I've got like a little marker and stuff. I could just write.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you. Make sure that you check out Sean and all of the valuable information and products that he has available. We thank you again for being here with us.
Thank y'all for having me.